In an ordinary suburb, there was an ordinary school with an ordinary janitor. But the janitor's backstory was quite extraordinary. He maintained a secret that brings a worldwide manhunt to American cities in pursuit of justice. 8 miles west of Chicago, Oak Park has included names like Ernest Hemingway and Frank Lloyd Wright.
In 1976, Oak Park won an award. They were named the All-American City for its commitment to integration.
Starting in 1959, the janitor at the high school here is widely admired for his hard work and willingness to help. But then, after 2 decades, his shocking secret is revealed. Reinhold Kula is a Nazi.
One would expect if there was one town that would have been outraged at the presence of a Nazi in his community, it would have been Oak Park. The initial reaction for about 8 months is silence.
The revelation forces people in this town to struggle with hard questions about their values.
I think there was a sense of immediately pushing back and saying, wait, this can't be true.
This was Germany, a beautiful country, a historic country.
In Germany, Jews are less than 1%. They are a consistent scapegoat for decades, even before the Nazis take power. And when they get into power, it's very quickly that they target the Jews.
Mike Sofer has a personal connection to Reinhold Kula. His wife's grandmother is once held at the Gross Rosen labor camp where Kula keeps watch.
Her grandparents survived. Most of the family did not. They were mostly murdered.
Mike shares this personal connection with students as he teaches Holocaust history in the same classroom that Kula once cleaned.
They were shocked that their town had rallied to his defense. And the book really actually grew out of my students' questions of saying, like, what, how? Of course we would have fired him. And I said, well, no, we actually did the opposite. And so it was kind of their curiosity that had spurred on the research that became this book.
The book is called Our Nazi, an American suburb's encounter with evil. The Nazis come into power in 1933. Reinhold Kula is about 12 and surrounded by Nazi ideology.
He goes through the Nazi school system where kids are heiling Hitler 50 to 150 times a day.
He's taught the Nazis warped views about race. As the years go by, Kula sees the Nazis' SS as an opportunity.
He volunteers to join the SS, which he would have known was the killing machine. Other folks in his Hitler Youth Regiment would have participated in bloody exploits in Poland, come home, bragged about those, and he volunteers, right? And so that's a really kind of important part of the story. He wants to be in the SS, and he knows what they do.
Injured in the war, he's reassigned to Gross Rosen labor camp to oversee the dangerous and often deadly job of working in a quarry. He also guards the perimeter to prevent escape. When the war is over, there are 3 ways to avoid consequences and enter America. 1, be recruited as a scientist. 2, be recruited as a spy.
And the third was really easy. You just lied. And a large number come in simply by lying on their visas, and Reinhold Kula does just that.
He enters the U.S. in 1957. It's estimated that thousands like Reinhold Kula live ordinary lives, and their American neighbors often comment about how friendly and helpful they are. Was that to make up for past sins? Was it cover? How do you explain that?
It's certainly not to make up for past sins. These are largely unrepentant individuals who, and it turns out with Kula and with many of them, were not disturbed by what they had done. One of the reasons that they're well behaved, and most of the Nazis who come to the United States are law-abiding, is they stood to lose a lot if they were caught.
Very few are caught. Ilse Koch, the witch of Buchenwald, is convicted of war crimes and commits suicide. Israeli agents capture SS officer Adolf Eichmann in Argentina. After trial, he's executed. Hermina Braunsteiner-Ryan is captured in New York.
And she's known as the stomping mayor of Majdanek for her penchant for stomping Jewish babies to death with her jackboots.
She's discovered by Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal. But there seems to be little interest by the American government to help these Nazi hunters.
Is anyone looking for these people to hold them accountable?
So very few eyes are focused on the United States, and so nobody's really looking for them here. And a whistleblower walks into Congresswoman Elizabeth Holtzman's office and says, we have a list of Nazis, and we're doing nothing about it.
Congresswoman Holtzman closes a legal loophole and pressures immigration officials to crack down on Nazi criminals hiding in plain sight in the United States.
We have this idea of Nazi hunters as these kind of swashbuckling, right, Indiana Jones figures. They are really just incredibly brilliant attorneys and researchers.
Those brilliant attorneys and researchers are on the trail of Reinhold Kula. He's using his skills as a labor camp guard to run a team of custodians at Oak Park River Forest High School. And now he's a bit easier to find.
And they just went down the list. You know, Kula, being an unrepentant Nazi, had never bothered to change his name. And they called him in, and he just freely admitted that he had been in the SS, and he even brought a picture of himself in uniform to his deposition.
The news is disturbing for people in Oak Park.
He kind of had this reputation of being like, a good guy, a hard worker.
Frank Lipo is executive director of the Oak Park River Forest Museum.
Some people right away saying there must be something wrong. That doesn't make sense. That's not the guy I know.
People were confronted with this shocking thing that wasn't just about Kula, but about themselves. What did it mean for me to find out that this person who I've been friends with, who knows my kids, is actually a monster? What does that reflect about me?
Two Jewish women from Oak Park push to have him removed, and it causes a backlash from the rest of the community.
The community largely supported its Nazi janitor.
Because he was a good guy?
I think that there's a lot of reasons. I think one of them is an ignorance about the Holocaust and not really understanding what it meant that he was an SS guard at a slave labor camp. Some of it is got to be anti-Semitism.
People in town argue that Jews are on a campaign of vengeance instead of forgiveness.
Forgiveness requires someone to experience remorse and to apologize. And forgiveness is something that can be offered only by the person who was wronged. The only people who had an ability to offer forgiveness to Kula were his victims. There were 120,000 prisoners at Gross Rosen, 40,000 were murdered. Those were the people who could have offered forgiveness.
Besides, Kula never asks for forgiveness, at least not for his actions during the war. All he ever says is that he's sorry for lying on his visa about being in the SS.
Later, he will say to the school board, I just wish we had won the war. And which again, when you're trying to keep your job, is a bold strategy. And he was asked at one point if he had killed anyone, and all he could muster was, I don't recall.
A growing number of Oak Park officials and citizens are urging the school board to suspend him. There had been enough evidence out there in the public that at some point he lied. They've definitely said, like, as it played out and we really understood, maybe we should have done something earlier.
The school board makes a secret deal with him that is only revealed many years later.
The school made a sweetheart deal with him, ensuring not only his pension would remain intact, but health benefits for him and his wife.
He's finally deported back to Germany in 1987.
And so as soon as he lands, it is announced that there will be no prosecution. He died in 2006, still a free man. The story of Reinhold Kula, 19-year-old SS volunteer wounded on the Russian front, assigned less active duty at Gross Rosen as an armed guard and SS trainer, fell hardest on those who knew him well, Marcus said.
Thanks to Mike Sofer, the new generation of Oak Park has a better understanding of what it means to be an SS guard during the Holocaust.
There was something that felt restorative about teaching this history in a room that he cleaned, in a building that supported him, in a town that supported him, but ultimately getting to teach the history of the Holocaust and of his evil felt somewhat redemptive. Kula did not look like a monster, Marcus said. The visage of the middle-aged custodian standing in front of her home seared in her mind. If ordinary men could do such terrible things, Marcus noted, might not I?
The book is called Our Nazi, An American Suburb's Encounter with Evil.